Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a corner to corner moss stitch square. Now these squares are super cute, fun and quick to make up. In this video I'm going to show you how to do the corner to corner moss stitch square itself, how to crochet a nice even moss stitch border on afterwards, and I'm going to touch upon joining methods such as how to do the join as you go, which you can see on my blanket here on the table. It's quite a big video with all those things involved, so let's leap straight on in. To begin, pop a slip knot onto your hook and then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now skip those first 2 chains and into that very first chain that you made, flip it around to find the little back bump. And under that back bump, we're going to work a single crochet. For row 2, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Now we're going to find the little gap in between the skip chains and the single crochet from the row below. So you have 2 little legs here, that's your single crochet, and then you have your skipped chains. If you pull those apart slightly, you'll see there is a little tiny hole in between them. And into that little tiny chain space in there, we're going to work an increase. And an increase is a single crochet, chain 1, and another single crochet all into the same space. That forms a little increase. For row 3, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Now find the first chain 1 space. We're working into the increase we just made, so we have a single crochet, chain 1, and a single crochet. It's quite tricky to spot, but I find the best way is to find the little legs of the single crochet. So here's one, it's made up of 2 little legs. Here's the other. So in between them, if I pull it apart a little bit, there's a little chain 1 gap. Into that chain 1 gap, we're going to work our first single crochet. So straight in there, work a single crochet. Be careful that you don't split the legs of your single crochets from the front. So that's me coming through the chain 1 space. If I was splitting the legs, I'd accidentally be coming through the middle of that second single crochet. You don't want that. You want to be coming through the chain 1 space only. And we're working our single crochet into that first chain 1 space. Then chain 1. And we are immediately confronted with our chain 3 turn from the row below. Into this end chain 3 space, so this turning chain, we're going to work an increase, which is single crochet, chain 1, and another single crochet into the same spot. So this is row 3, so we have 1, 2, 3 single crochets. If you're ever wondering which row you are on when increasing your square, so on these starting rows, just count how many single crochets you've made, 1, 2, 3, and you'll know you're on the 3rd row. So for row 4, we're going to chain 3, just as we have been, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Now find the first chain 1 space, that's in between these 2 single crochets that are quite tight together. That chain 1 space is in between them, so work a single crochet into there, then chain 1, find the next chain 1 space, which will be vastly easier to spot. Here are your 2 single crochets, and the chain 1 is in between them. So into that chain 1 space, work a single crochet, chain 1, and then the last space we have is this turning chain, the chain 3. So into that end chain space, we're going to work an increase, which is single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. And again, how I know that is row 4 is I've made 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4. For row 5, again, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, turn, find that first chain one space. It's in between these two single crochets that are quite tightly together, and work your first single crochet into that chain one space. Then chain one, find the next chain one space, it's in between these single crochets, and work a single crochet. Chain one, find the next chain one space, and work a single crochet. We do that all the way along until you have run out of chain one spaces to work into. Once you've finished your last single crochet into the last chain one space, chain one if you haven't already, and then you'll be right at the end in your chain three. In that chain three space, we work an increase because we are increasing the size of our square. And that increase consists of a single crochet, chain one, and a single crochet. So you can see we are growing our square in a triangular fashion first. So we're going to keep repeating row 5 for the width that you want your square to be. Now please note, we can only get this square to work with a moss stitch border if we have an odd number of rows. So this is row 5. I know it's row 5 because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets in this row. I'm going to keep repeating this back and forth, but I will stop when I have an odd number. Now my squares, before I put my moss stitch border on, I increased them by 11 rows, so an odd number. This will not work. The border around your squares will not work if you stop increasing on an even number. So we're going to keep repeating row 5 until you have the width that you want, so the size of the square that you'd like, and an odd number of rows. Now for me personally, that was 11, so I'm going to take this square to 11 rows. So to quickly recap row 5, which is the row we're going to be going back and forth with, you chain 3, then turn your work. Find the very first chain one space, which is in between these two single crochets that are quite tightly packed together, and work your first single crochet in there. Then we're going to chain 1 and find the next chain 1 space and work the single crochet into there. Chain 1, single crochet into the next chain 1 space. Keep doing this until you have run out of chain 1 spaces to work into. Then once you have worked your very last single crochet into your very last chain 1 space, chain 1 if you haven't already, and into this end chain 3 space, work an increase. So single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. If at any point you lose track of which numbered row you are on, count the single crochets you just made in this last row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know this is row 6. So keep repeating this row back and forth until you have the width that you want. For me, that is 11 rows, but just please make sure you end on an odd numbered row. Once you have the width that you want for your square and you have ended on an odd numbered row, we have one row to set up before we start decreasing this to become a square. So your setup row for the decrease is to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work, just as we have been doing. Then we're going to find that first chain 1 space. It's in between your increase from the row below. So just as you have been, pop a single crochet into the first chain 1 space, chain 1, single crochet into the next chain 1 space, chain 1. Keep working this until you have run out of chain 1 spaces to work into. So just as if we were increasing but we're going to be ending this row a little bit differently, just so we're set up, ready to start decreasing. So here's my last chain 1 space. I'm working my last single crochet in there and then chain 1. Now into this chain 3 end space, we are not going to work an increase. Instead, we are going to work 1 single crochet, do not chain, and then we're going to work an extended single crochet. So pop your hook into the chain 3 space, draw up a loop. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through that first loop only. You will still have 2 loops on your hook. Now you can complete your extended single crochet by yarning over and draw through those 2 loops. That just gives a slightly taller single crochet. It makes for a slightly neater turn. This will now become a corner. So now we are ready to begin our decrease row. Now our decrease row is the row we're going to repeat over and over again. I will go over it a couple of times for you. So we're going to chain 2. We are no longer chaining 3. Chain 2 and turn your work. Now we need to find the first chain 1 space. We've just worked a single crochet and an extended single crochet into this end chain space. There was no chain in between them. So skip the first 2 stitches and find that chain 1 space, which will be after them. And into that first chain 1 space is where you work your first single crochet. So we've skipped over 2 stitches entirely. Then we're going to chain 1 and single crochet into the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, single crochet into the next chain 1 space. Repeat this, chain 1 and single crochet into the next chain 1 space until you have run out of chain 1 spaces to work into. Please note it's switched around now. We are doing chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, and that is my last chain 1 space. Do not chain after that last single crochet in the last chain 1 spot. Now we're going to reach over into this chain space at the end, and we're just going to end with 1 single crochet into that turning chain at the end. Let's do that again. Chain 2, 1, 2. Turn your work. Find the first chain 1 space. We did not chain in between these last 2 stitches. There's no chain. So the first chain 1 space is found by skipping the first 2 stitches, and there's your chain 1 space. Then chain 1, single crochet into the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, single crochet into the next chain 1 space. We're going to work this until we have run out of chain 1 spaces, and do not chain after the last single crochet that we make. So here is my last chain 1 space. I'm going to end with a single crochet. Do not chain. Then I'm going to reach into this turning chain. It's a chain 2 now, so it's a bit smaller. And I'm going to end with just 1 single crochet into that chain 2 space. So you can see we're now bringing the square back in. I'll recap that decrease row one more time. We're going to chain 2, turn, skip the first 2 single crochet because there is no chain 1 space in between them. Find the next chain 1 space and work your single crochet into that. Then chain 1, single crochet in the next chain one space, chain one, single crochet into the next chain one space until you have run out of chain one spaces to work into. Once you work your final single crochet into the final chain one space, do not chain, and into the chain two space at the very end here, work a single crochet. Now we're going to repeat this last row back and forth until you have just 2 single crochet remaining in your row. So chain 2, turn, skip 2, single crochet into the first chain 1 space, chain 1 and single crochet until you run out of chain 1 spaces to work into. Once you've worked your last single crochet into the last chain 1 space, do not chain and end with 1 single crochet into that chain 2 turning space. Once you have just 2 single crochet left in the row that you have just completed, so you'll see here I have my chain 2, single crochet, and nothing else. That's all that exists in this row. Your very final row will be to chain 1, turn your work, skip those 2 single crochet, and into the chain 2 turning chain, work 1 single crochet. Then chain 1 and cut your yarn, leaving yourself an end to weave in later. Pull that up, out, and pull it tight. Now, if your square is looking a bit like mine, where it's a little bit tight and pulled in, just take a moment to pull out the corners. Make it relax a little bit. And then we have a square. Now you can, of course, leave your squares just as they are. However, I particularly like having a little moss stitch border around them. The moss stitch border is super versatile. It means that you can either join as you go, as I have for my squares here, or you can then go on to build extra rows around this first moss stitch row. You can embellish your squares however you want them to be, but I found it's just a nice finish to your squares rather than leaving these edges raw. Now for the moss stitch border, I advise going up at least 1 hook size from the hook size you've been using for the squares. For me personally, doing this moss stitch border with the join as you go, I found I had to go up 2 hook sizes for my moss stitch border. So for my squares, I have been using a 6mm crochet hook. So for the border, I am going to use an 8mm crochet hook. You are welcome to try just 1 hook size up, but definitely do a small sample first. I found just 1 hook size wasn't quite enough drape for me using join as you go. So I'm going to use my larger hook and a corresponding colour. For me, that is white. And we're going to begin the moss stitch border. So to begin, pop a slip knot onto your hook. Now, where we just finished our square, there is a small chain 1 space. So there is the single crochet that we made, and there is a little chain 1 space, and that is where we're going to put our hook. Now I'm going to start with a standing single crochet. So I already have my slip knot on my hook. I'm going to put my hook into that chain 1 space, and I'm going to draw up a loop. So I've now got 2 loops on my hook. There's my slip knot, and there's the yarn I just drew up. Then yarn over, draw through both loops, and I've created a single crochet. Now this is going to be my first corner. So chain 2, 1, 2, and back into that chain 1 space, work 1 more single crochet. So that is my first corner formed. Now this Moss Stitch border is nice and simple. It's pretty quick too. We're going to chain 1 and then find these chain spaces along the side. Now if you look, actually it might be a bit easier to spot them on my lighter coloured one. There are very clear little eyelets down the side of your square. Those are the little turning chains that we worked our single crochets into. These are where I'm going to be placing my hook. So wherever you can spot a single crochet, it's worked into a chain space. There's my single crochet worked into the chain space. There are the 2 legs of my single crochet, and there is the chain space below it. So I work my single crochet into the chain space. Chain 1, find the next chain space, and work a single crochet. Chain 1, find the next chain space, and work a single crochet. I'm going to do this all the way down the side here. So chain 1, find that next sort of eyelet area, and work a single crochet. Chain 1, find the next turning chain space, and work a single crochet. Now we're going to do that all the way down. And now to end this side, the next turning chain you see is quite a nice big one here on the corner. So chain 1 and work a single crochet into that. And we're going to form a corner in this chain space here. So chain 2 and work a single crochet back into that same spot. Just take a moment to count, ignoring the first single crochet you made and that last one you made. Count how many single crochets you have down the side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do not count the first one you made and do not count that last one. So those 7 single crochets, that's how many I will have on each side. It's good to make a note of how many single crochets each side has so that you know your border will be even. So I'm going to turn around. Now I've already made the first of these 7 single crochets I'm going to be making. Again, it's fairly obvious, these nice chain gaps along the side where we're going to be working into. So we're going to chain 1, work a single crochet into the chain gaps of the side, chain 1, single crochet. We keep doing this down the side. Again, you can see here's my single crochet worked into the turning chain. So that's, I know, the turning chain to work into. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know I need 2 more. So chain 1, find that next chain space and work my single crochet. Now for this next corner, this corner is your slip knot from your chain 3 right at the start of the square. So chain 1 if you haven't already, and rather than working into this little slip stitch here, for a nice strong corner, I actually work into the base of this increase of row 2. So this is row 1, this is row 2. I work underneath these single crochets here. So you can see a nice sort of area in here. I'm working into row 1. It just gives a stronger finish. So in there we're going to work a corner. So that's a single crochet. Just take a moment to check that you have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or however many you had on your first side. Then chain 2 and work a single crochet back into that same spot. Now we're going to do the same along this next side. So chain 1, work a single crochet into these side chain spaces all the way along. And now for this third corner, you'll see I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need 7. You will have one less stitch than you also need, whatever that count is. So we need to create a corner where there is no turning chain. So this area here, right at the end, this was our extended single crochet. We're going to work into the side of this. So if you pull these 2 stitches apart, force a gap, and we're going to chain 1 if you haven't already, and into the side of that stitch, we're going to work a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet to form that corner. So we've now come around 3 sides, we've got our 4 corners, and we can clearly see these little chain spaces that we need to work into for this very last side. So chain 1, here's your first little chain space, work a single crochet in there, chain 1, find the next one, work your single crochet, keep going. Then once you have worked your last single crochet into that last obvious spot, just take a moment to count your stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and my very first one I made, 7. Make sure it is the correct number, the same number you have on every single side. Once you're happy, chain 1 if you haven't already. Then we're going to slip stitch to the top of this standing single crochet that we made right at the beginning of the round. So I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of that. So now you have a nice square moss stitch border. Your stitch count is even. Again, you can sort of pull your corners, pull them into line, and you are free to build on this if you wish to add more rounds of another stitch to this external border. If, however, you are happy with just that one round of moss stitch, go ahead and chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving an end to weave in, pull it up and pull it tight. Now for my squares, I did a join as you go. So for the join as you go, just really briefly to touch on it, I start my square the same way, so my next square, and I crochet around until I get to the side that I want to join. So before I complete my corner, I want to join to this side here. So I'm going to be joining to this side. So all I'm going to do is for my corner spaces, chain 1 and then slip stitch into the chain 2 space of the corresponding corner, which is over here. Just going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to go back into the square I'm working on to finish my corner. So work a single crochet in there. So I've joined at the corners, and now for the join as you go, everywhere there would be a chain 1, I'm going to substitute that out for a slip stitch. So instead of chaining 1, I'm going to slip stitch into that chain 1 space on the corresponding square, and then work my single crochet into the square I'm working on. I don't chain, instead I slip stitch into the chain 1 space of the other square, and then I work my single crochet into the square that I'm working on. Slip stitch into the next chain 1 space and work my single crochet back into the square. So you can see it joins as I go. So that is how I've joined my particular squares. As I say, you are free to do whatever joining method you like. You could sew them together, you can crochet them together, you can create larger, thicker borders to your squares if you want to, building from this very basic moss stitch round. The world is your oyster to do with what you want, really. So on this very last single crochet, I chain 1, slip stitch into the chain 2 space of the other one, and then single crochet back into that corner. Then I continue around with my just basic moss stitch pattern, and my squares themselves are joined nice and tight. So that's just a really quick, brief overview of how I joined my squares. But as I say, you're free to join however you like. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you go on to make these lovely moss stitch squares for yourself. Just remember, when increasing, you only want to take it to an odd numbered row. You can make the squares as large or as small as you like, but it's got to be an odd number of increases. So until next time, happy crocheting! Bye!